Continuing where we've left in the previous video, in this video we are going to create two methods. First one will be called order by and the other one called limit. Both of these methods will basically add to the SQL statement. First one will basically set the order by clause, and the other one will add the limit, so we can actually limit the number of records that we want to return. Okay, so let's start with the order by. We're starting with public function order by, and this one will take two arguments. First one will be order by default null, and the second one will take direction, and by default we are going to associate A as C for ascending order. First of all, what we're going to do is check if is null, and we're checking for the order by. If we didn't pass the first argument, then what we want to do is just use the standard clause on the order by clause basically on this statement. And rather than just typing this here, what we are going to do is delegate it to another method. So this order by clause method, which we'll create in just a moment, and the SQL statement is going to be in between a double quotes. I'm going to put backticks, and again curly brackets. You don't have to use them, but I tend to do it. So table, we put in the table name first, then concatenating this with the ID record, with the ID column. So by default, records will be sorted by the ID of the record. And then after this is the first argument to this order by clause. The second argument will be the direction. So direction. And let's quickly create this method. So order by clause, I'm going to add it. And the string, rather than string, let's just put here field, and the direction can stay the same way as it is. So we are going to add to statements array this specific statement. It's going to be after the space in between the double quotes, order by, and then in between a bracket, so without them, field, and then space, direction. So for instance, as you obviously can see here, this table obviously can contain something like, let's say, books. So that's going to be wrapped with this backticks, then concatenated with the backtick and ID. So that's basically table name and the field on this table. And then direction would be ascending, for instance, if we didn't override the second argument. So the whole statement would be order by books ID in the ascending order. That's basically what this order clause would return. Okay, so that's order by clause done. Now what we're going to do after this, if it's null, then we don't want to do anything else, and we're going to return this. We're basically returning the reference to itself. So if it's directly from within the model, obviously that would indicate the model. If we are going to call this order by from within the book, that would refer to the book model basically. And obviously what this will allow us to do is, for instance, when we call, let's say, this order by, and then if we're going to have another method that we want to add to it, basically call on the same instance, then we can also do it, let's say, limit, which we're going to create in just a moment. So returning this basically allows us to change all these methods. Okay, so if the first argument is null, then this will be executed, and then reference to itself will be returned. If it's not null, then what we're going to do is create the order by. Basically, we're going to override this argument, and what we're going to do is explode it using a full stop. Basically, divide. If there is a full stop within this order by, then we're going to create an array. Basically, we're going to convert this order by to an array, doing so. So order by as an argument, and what this will allow us to do, sometimes you may specify the table within the order by. Let's say if we want to do something, if we, let's say, have a joint statement, we can have it as, let's say, order by author, say first name or whatever. Otherwise, it will take the default table name and concatenate it with a field name. So now we are exploding this by using the full stop, and I'm going to check if count order by triple equal symbol 1 because I want to make sure that it's obviously count is always going to return integer, and I'm comparing it against the integer as well. So triple equal is absolutely fine here because data type will match as well. So if it is equal, then that would indicate that there was no full stop in this order by argument. I mean, we only have the field name. So I'm going to copy what we've got here, this order by clause. This time what I'm going to do is keep in the table because obviously we didn't have any concatenation. That means that we're using the default table name associated with this table property. And the only thing we need to use here is basically put the name of the field, which in this case, because we've converted this to the array now, so we cannot just call it order by, we need to use the array approach using the square brackets. So we're going to use order by, and the first item starting at index 0, obviously the only item in this array at this point. And that's everything for this statement. Obviously, again, if that is true, this statement is executed. We don't want anything after this to run basically. So we're going to return reference to itself, return this. Okay, so if it's not equal 1, meaning that we did have a full stop, which would indicate that we have a table name plus the field name. So what I'm going to do is basically copy this entire statement again, and this time rather than having this table here, what I'm going to do is copy this order by with item 0, but at index 0 we will have a table name, and at index 1 we will have a field name. So that's why we're concatenating it this way. And then at the end, again, the same thing, return reference to itself, return this, and semicolon. So that's our order by method completed. Let's add some doc blocks. So we start with this one. We have all the arguments here. And then this might be string, but it also might be, null, but it also might be string. So pipe and string. And what it does, it's simply order by statement. That's what it is. And then for the order by clause, and we have a field which will be a string, and then direction, which is also a string. And I think that's it. And it doesn't return anything, so it's void, return void. And what we are going to add as a description, add order by statement to a collection of statements. Yeah, I think that makes sense. Okay, so the last method we are going to add to this module for the time being is going to be called limit. So public function again, because it needs to be accessible publicly from outside of this class. Limits, and then we're gonna go for the first argument, which will be called limit as well. The second one will be offset, and by default we're going to start with 0. So it starts at the first record. So return, and the statement will be limit, and then in the again curly brackets, you don't have to use them again. Limit as first item, then offset, and the offset will be offset. There we go. So that's our offset. There we go. So that's our limit statement from within the limit method. That's all we need for this specific method. So again, let's add the doc block. Limit will be integer, and offset is also an integer. And limit statement, I think that describes it perfectly. So that's it in this video. In the following one, we start making use of this model class.